Walter Jackson, you've been away. You've been unwell. And I think before we start any conversation about any rugby or anything, we owe the Oorsee community an explanation on where have you been. Now, it's your story, so I think you need to tell it. And before you start, I just want to make something clear. In one of our last interviews, some lady commented and says, "But Stephen, why are you interviewing Walter again?" And I just want to tell everyone out there, Walter owns half of Oorsee. He's actually my business partner. He lives in Charlotte in the USA, and he is an arrogant bastard, according to his description. Lekker arrogant. Walter, the mic's yours.
I've just been away because I'm passionately lazy and I like to do nothing. No, it's heart attacks, I tell you, will ruin your weekend. Ruin more than your weekend. But I'm back now. I'm on the meds, and I missed Oorsee terribly. It was so great and such a big part of my life to, engage with fellow expats, fellow South Africans living Oorsee. I love that. So I'm glad to be back and haven't kicked the bucket yet. And excited to talk about the rugby tomorrow. For me, it's still very far away in terms of time because it just, when they play in New Zealand, it just seems like it's on a different planet because we have to, in the US, well, where I am in the US, I have to get up at like 3 in the morning to watch that game, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, I've tried to do the Iron Man and drink my brandewijn the night before and push through till 3, but by then, I mean, the game makes no sense. You're hugging, everybody around you, telling them you love them, and you don't really give a shit about the rugby. So that doesn't work. I'm doing the old man version now where I get up at 3, have a cup of coffee, and then watch the game sober, which is quite unique as a Springboks fan. I haven't watched a sober game of rugby for 40 years, back when I was a child. So, yeah,
Sorry,
very
Walter.
excited for tomorrow.
We lost connection there for a good 3 seconds. The last thing you said was you wake up at 3, empty your catheter or catheter, and then something. Sorry, do you want to
Coffee.
coffee? Sorry,
This new program sucks. We're going to go back to Zoom.
nah. This
No,
is bad.
anyway, tomorrow is probably the biggest game of rugby you will find outside of a World Cup final. It is an incredible event to play at Eden Park. The Boks really haven't done it for a while. I think it's like, God knows, maybe 11 times we've played there in our history. And I don't think we've won there since before the Second World War. I mean, you're going back into the 90s to find a game we won. I think we've only won there twice. So it's a very unique venue. I think the All Blacks have been kind of hiding it from us. They're happy to play us there when we suck, but we've been beating them recently. So it's great to see them put up this amazing record. It's incredible. I think it goes back 30 odd years. They've won 50 games in a row, this venue. I mean, there's nothing in professional sport that comes close to this. You're talking Nadal on a clay court type of records.
I'm thinking they decided on this venue because they saw how the Boks were playing against Australia, and they figured, you know what, we can take them. We can take them.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love the Boks, I'm not happy about the last 2 games. Look, I can't play rugby anymore. I'll break all the bones in my body. But as a critic on the side, which is pretty much every South African at this moment, even the win they had against Australia was stressful.
It was, Stephen, and it's because we started the year off so well. I mean, we demolished the Barbarians, who had a pretty decent team. I don't think they really had much time to train together, but that's the nature of the Barbarians. And then we had a few easy games, shall we call it, Italy, Georgia. And then we started the game against Australia like we are the best team that's ever walked the earth. I mean, it was phenomenal. That first 20 minutes against Australia was the best Springboks rugby I've seen uh, in decades. It was incredible to see us play that way. A big part of that was Marnie Libok and Sia Khaleesi in that game really stood up in the first 20 minutes. And then it all just fell apart. That playing wide, expansive game exposed our weakness for getting turned over. When you play wide and expansive rugby, you don't have the numbers at the edges to combat that. And they have phenomenal loose forwards in Australia. Fraser McRight's one of my favorite players right now. Great over the ball on defense. And yeah, they turned us over, and the rest is history. 38 unanswered points later, and we lost the test match. I think we showed a lot of guts coming back the second game, but that first game was, I mean, talk about a tale of two halves.
I can raise my hand. Did you say Liberal? Now, that's interesting because you know that 2/3 of South Africa is not going to agree with what you just said. Yes, Liberal has his moments, but it's not consistent. And I think that's part of the main reason Rassie decided, well, we're going to put Andre Pollard back for the second championship.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned we need to acknowledge that Libok is a phenomenal player in a certain respect. The way he got the backline going and attacked in that first 20 minutes is why he is a Springbok.
Yes.
Why he's not the first choice Springbok is the rest of the game, because when the pressure came on, he couldn't really change the game plan. He's a very great player in his one dimension, but that I feel is his only dimension, right? He's a great attacking player. He gets the backline going, but when your team is under pressure, he can't really dictate the game like a fly half being a general.
Okay, well, I need to comment about that because I think I spoke about this before. I really like him, and there was a match or two back where he was phenomenal, and I couldn't stop talking about it. But I don't think he's a good fly off. Put him on a center position or somewhere else, but you need a good kicker, especially against a team like New Zealand, which is obviously we'll be playing tomorrow. Today, I think for you, is it?
You're closer.
Closer, yes. Tomorrow, yeah, not tomorrow. Sorry, this time difference is killing me. But yeah, I think have totally underestimated Australia, and it's true.
Yeah, I mean I watched the Lions series over there with keen interest, and they played well against the British and Irish Lions, and we need a strong Australia. I'm glad that they're playing great rugby. They have a much smaller player pool. They have almost indifference, and you can speak to this in Australia, almost indifference to rugby. I mean, they just don't give a shit. They have too many other sports. So it's actually incredible that they can perform to this level, and, long live a great Australia team. And I don't think we underestimated them. I just think we had the wrong team picked and we played the wrong game plan for Australia. We believed we could run ragged against them like we did last year in Australia. And we did for the first 20 minutes. And then that game plan imploded, and we didn't have, not to pick on Marnie, but we didn't have the general to say, okay, now this plan isn't working. We're getting turned over on the edges. Let's play a tighter game. They just kept trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So
Yes, it wasn't
madness,
Marnie's
but
fault. It was alone.
yeah. But back onto tomorrow, right? We've got some very interesting calls that happened. First thing I found very interesting was the fact that Sia is playing, because he had a niggle, and then that he's playing and he's not the captain. That's very strange to see Siya Kolisi on the field and not be capped.
Well, he had his fair share of politics in the last 6 months. Maybe it's a political decision. We don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I think Rassi, he's got a few rules that's kind of set in stone, and then he kind of pivoted away from it. Like, if somebody doesn't practice on a Monday, they don't typically play. Well, that was in stone. They don't play Saturday. But then Jean-Luc Depree, the unluckiest man in rugby, got a little niggle on Wednesday, I believe. If you listen to Brendan Nell's podcast, I think Jean-Luc is the unluckiest guy. Honestly, he just got injured again, and now Siya was thrown in last minute, and I believe Jesse Creel was told he's going to be captain, and he's staying captain even though Siya is back. So that's an interesting call out. I mean, I understand why he's keeping him, because he was told, and the team was told on Monday, this is your captain, prepare for it. And I like this. I mean, I think Sia might not make the next World Cup, and Jesse, I think Sia is 34, Jesse is 31, I believe. So he's got a better chance of making the next World Cup. Jesse, it's it's great to have a captain there if Sia doesn't make it. And then the other interesting thing was picking Ethan Hooker, the young lad from Natal, KwaZulu
Saw
Natal.
that. But isn't there a couple of hookers in the reserves as well?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know what they do for a side hustle, but Sting, I
Honestly,
would have
honestly,
actually started Ethan Hooker if you're going to pick him, start him. He's such a an incredible player, but Kanan is Moody's just been off color a bit the last few games, but he's a quality player, so I understand that Rassi and the coaching team see them daily in practice. They see them in training, so they make these big calls. I'm a big fan of Ethan Hooker. I think he's got a great future, and I can't wait to see him on the field against New Zealand. He's a phenomenal player, powerful, intelligent, can play lots of positions. So those are the interesting ones, and I think also maybe an interesting call leaving out Argis Snyman, putting Norkia in the starting position. I think he deserves it. He's played so well. He's like the tiniest, relatively tiniest, smallest lock we've had in a while. But, size isn't everything. We've got Salman Murat, who's a giant, but he's rubbish. I'd rather take a smaller Norkia and pick Ruano over him all the time. So, yeah, very interesting calls. And then on the New Zealand side, RD's playing his 100th match. Phenomenal player. I mean, you can only have respect for that guy. Great on him. I think there's only been 14 All Blacks who've played 100 test matches, so he'll be number 15. Incredible achievement. And then we've got Wallace Atiti back. Great player. He was the breakthrough player of the year last year. So New Zealand also have their issues. Look what they did last week or a couple of weeks ago against Argentina. They were just demolished physically, and then they get flustered, exposed their back three for aerial prowess. They struggled, and that's where Argentina really, really stuck into them, putting up the bombs, and they just didn't do well. Rico Ioane, Severis, even Will Jordan, they struggled. So they've made a change there. They've put Imoni Narawa, I think, is in instead of Severis. So it's going to be an incredibly interesting battle to see how Grant Williams puts up the bombs and how Cheslin and Kane Moody chase and how New Zealand copes with that. And then how tightly we are going to play and whether we can combat the turnover battle that we lost against Australia, and our lineouts have been struggling. So very
yes.
interesting. My head says All Blacks, and my heart always says Springboks. So Stephen, tell me, who's going to win?
I'm going to go with the Springboks for this one. And I think it's going to be a close one. Actually, you know what I asked? I spoke to Robbie Vessels 2 days ago. Or was it yesterday? 2 days now. Anyway, and he said the same thing. And I thought, you know what? You got a good point there, because currently they both really good teams. There's a bit unsurety. And you mentioned earlier about Siya Kolisi might not make it to the next World Cup. there's a couple of players who obviously, unfortunately, does have a shelf life. I am very surprised that there is a lot of, like Ibn Etzebeth. Ibn Etzebeth's a brilliant player. But at if so it's not, I'm not saying this because he's constantly declined the request for an interview. I'm saying this because I've watched. No, I'm kidding. He's never declined. I just never could get hold of him. I had some good chats with Kitsoff though, but he sometimes gets clumsy. It's a bit. I know his size, his strength, and quite often he will get those few short steps forward in order for us to get the try, to get the penalty. But I wonder how many games he still has left in him before they're going to start looking, because there's a couple of really talented locks coming up the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, lock position, I think it's the Dutch heritage. We carry the gene in South Africa where they're the tallest nation, if you could believe it, the Dutch, even taller than the Masai Mara people. We always produce a lot of incredible locks if you go back through history, all the way to Frick de Preer. These guys are incredible, and there's always treadmill of guys coming through just on the conveyor belt. So at some point, yes, we all reach our peak, and then it's just downhill from there. I don't think Etzebeth's there yet. I think he will make the next World Cup. I'm not so sure about Sia. We know Vili won't. I mean, he's just barely hanging on there now, playing tomorrow, starting tomorrow. Yeah, there are a few players who aren't going to make it. That's just a part of life. I think Rassie has been building a wider squad depth, really focusing on this, so he's well aware. We even had some of the, I think 3 of the, say, under 20 players actually joined the Springbok training camp this year, so they are bringing these guys in, that Hashim Pete. There's a lot of really, really cool players coming through. So I'm not worried about the future. South Africa produces a ton of players, even enough to, fill up Scotland. So we have a lot of great players coming through. What we see for tomorrow, though, is these players have to stand up and produce like a World Cup final performance. You can win the World Cup every 4 years, but it's been 90 years almost since we won at Eden Park. It's not something that comes up frequently. So
True.
we have a very real shot tomorrow at beating the All Blacks. Beating them in New Zealand, that does not happen often. Right?
Yeah.
They come over to South Africa all the time and beat us, embarrassingly. But we don't do the same in New Zealand. That's very rare for us to beat them there. So I'd say New Zealand still odds-on favorites. We have maybe a 30% chance of a victory if you have to put a number on it. That's just the reality. We don't win in New Zealand, Stephen. We have to be realistic. I watched rugby for 50 years. And we just don't win in New Zealand. And
Well,
that's the
look,
reality.
that's what makes it so exciting. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be epic. I hope it's close because I don't like runaway games. And I hope they do win, because otherwise I'm going to be very awkward at work on Monday, because I'm surrounded by a bunch of Aussies in the office. But even though 2/3 of our staff is like South African, the
Oh my
last thing
goodness.
I don't want to sit there and hear Mitch just constantly saying, "So how was that game?" Because yeah, they did the
Remind
same.
them we beat them at the cricket.
Yes, yes. But they constantly did that when South Africa lost against Australia. Walter, you are, as always, very insightful. You do your research. You know what you're talking about. I sort of leg it off the what I see on the game. And thank you for bringing something to the table of value. If I can't do these sort of chats on my own because I don't have the knowledge that you have around this beautiful game, and I am hoping and hopeful that the Boks will win tomorrow.
Yes. Come on, Bob.